A 6-year-old girl in China has become the fastest female to solve a Rubik's Cube in under 6 seconds. Soshi Shen from Jiangsu province managed to decipher the 3x3x3 puzzle in 5.97 seconds. Let's get more from our China media analyst, Kerry Allen.
What you are hearing here is the sound of a new world record being set. This week, it's been announced that Chinese speed cuber Cao Xixian has set the new women's world record for solving a Rubik's Cube in 5.97 seconds. She's now the only female in the world to be recognised by the World Cube Association as being able to do this in under 6 seconds. And what makes this particularly spectacular is that she's only 6 years old. Cao's mother has told media this week that her daughter first became interested in playing with a Rubik's Cube when she was 3 years old, and she saw her cousin playing with one. Ever since, she's been playing with one for 2 to 3 hours a day, practicing getting faster and faster. And her success has come as a huge surprise. Truthfully, I felt like we were living in a dream for a couple of days after returning home, her mother said. We never thought that she would be breaking the world record so soon. She set the record at the Rubik's Cube International Open in Singapore, which took place earlier this year. Her record is not the fastest time overall. That was actually only set in June, when 21-year-old American speed cuber Max Park claimed the Guinness World Record. He solved a Rubik's Cube in 3.13 seconds. Yes! There's been a lot of praise for Cao on Chinese social media. On the social network Weibo, users have spoken of how they couldn't solve a cube in 6 hours, let alone 6 seconds. And there are many who feel that her young age means that she could eventually claim the overall title in years to come. Rubik's Cubes are very popular toys in China. Before Max Park broke the world speed record in June, Chinese prodigy Du Yusheng held the record in 2018 with a time of 3.47 seconds. The Guinness Book of Records says that there are other Chinese prodigies as well that have burst onto the scene in recent years. One to watch is 14-year-old Xu Riheng, who has solved a cube on camera in a whopping 2.68 seconds. But because he did not do this at the World Cube Association, there's still a chance for him or Cao Xixian to claim the title yet.
Kerry Allen.
Bernie Taupin. A 7-year-old boy from the US is thought to have become the youngest person to successfully climb the Old Man of Hoy in Orkney, one of the UK's tallest sea stacks. Sea stacks, in case you're wondering, are columns of rocks that rise out of the sea. Judy Frankel reports.
Cody Weishar scaled the 137-metre sandstone column with his father and 3 friends last month. His family, originally from Missouri, are currently living in Ayrshire and have been exploring climbing routes around Scotland. This was the moment they reached the top, surrounded on all sides by a sheer drop to the water below.
Woo!
I'm 7 years old.
Yep, and you've climbed Man of Hoy.
It was hard journey.
Cody's dad, Bill, said he was beside his young son on a separate rope, giving him advice, but that he did it all by himself.
When we got to pitch 2, it was definitely difficult, and I told him, I'm not going to help you. If you want to break this so-called record, you need to climb this on your own. I'm not going to push you up. I'm not going to give you any more than advice on how to climb it. He cleared the move, and the rest was easy sailing.
The dizzying heights weren't the only thing Cody braved during the perilous climb. He was also attacked by a nesting seabird known to vomit in self-defense.
I didn't get spat on at the start, but then when we were rappelling, I went down to rappel, and this bird has a really good aim, and it spat on my first right in the cheek. But at least he didn't poop on me.
Cody, who started climbing at the age of 2, has now set himself a fresh target of climbing some of the other 10 tallest sea stacks around the coastline of Scotland.
So lots more to come, it seems. That reporting.
Competitive chess, with its need for a sharp and creative mind, has been called a young person's game. But a rising star from London is testing the limits of exactly how young, winning prizes at international tournaments at the age of just 8. Peter Goffin has the story.
Badana Sivanathan found her calling at 5 years old, as the world was locking down during the COVID pandemic.
When one of my dad's friends was going back to India in COVID time, he gave us a chessboard, I was interested in the pieces and I started playing.
3 years later, she's been named the top female player at the European Championships for Blitz and Rapid Chess, time-limited matches that test a player's quick reactions. To win that title, she beat Lauren DaCosta, the 39-year-old coach of England's national women's team. In the tournament's final round, she played to a draw with the 54-year-old Romanian grandmaster Vladislav Nevednici.
I always try my best to win all the tournaments with all the games. Sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. I just play the board.
Chess is no stranger to child prodigies. The legendary American grandmaster Bobby Fischer won his first national championship at 14. The Indian player Ramesh Babu Pragnananda was ranked an international master at age 10. 2 years ago, aged 16, he beat world champion Magnus Carlsen. That's the path Badana dreams of: grandmaster status, gold medals, and global titles. She's competed across Britain, in Croatia, Egypt, and beyond, with her dad Siva in tow.
She likes it and she likes traveling as well, so I keep taking her to tournaments. Like she said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work well, but we keep trying and keep going.
The president of the English Chess Federation has called Badana a phenomenon. Her playing style remarkably mature, strategic, and patient. Chess may be contained to 64 squares on a board, but for Badana, the world is opening up before her.
Peter Goffin.
Now, it's that time of year when students are starting to head back to university. But just how far would you travel for your academic pursuits? Well, one student from Guinea in West Africa made it his goal to study at a prestigious institution in Egypt, but didn't have the money to get there. So he decided on a less conventional mode of transport for such a long journey. Yusuf Taha reports.
To pursue his dream, Mamadou Safayu Bari set off on his bicycle to Egypt, a journey of over 8,000 kilometers. He rode through Mali, Burkina Faso, Togo, Benin, and Niger. 4 months into his arduous journey, Mr. Bari ended up in Chad. There, Good Samaritans paid for him to fly the rest of the way to Cairo. His story earned him a meeting with the Dean of the Faculty of Islamic Studies. Dr. Nahla Saidi praised him for his determination and offered him a place on the faculty's Islamic Studies course with a full scholarship, along with a set of books to help him learn Arabic. Mr. Bari said he's overjoyed to be studying at the prestigious university, which made his journey worthwhile. He pointed out that people in Guinea look up to Al-Azhar as the highest authority of Sunni Islam, and are always proud when their children graduate from one of its faculties. Dr. Saidi, who is also the advisor for expatriate students, said that Al-Azhar offers its courses and unlimited support to its students, including foreign ones, and tries to make their life easier. Mr. Bari extended his thanks to the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, to Egypt and its people, who welcomed him with open arms.
Yusuf Taha.
Now to New Zealand to meet Michael Kingi-Potiki, who left school illiterate at 14 and who, in his 50s, realised he wanted to be able to read to his grandchildren. So he got help from a retired teacher, started learning, and he's now written his own book, A Journey Towards Literacy, proving it's never too late. Michael told us about his inspiration.
Watch my wife reading to my grandchildren, and they asked me, "Could you read us a story too, Pop Pop?" And I couldn't. That took me back, and I thought to myself, I got to do something about it. So I reached out, and I found the help I needed.
So just to go back, what was school like for you?
Oh, that was terrible. I was born with a short tongue, and nobody could understand me. I stuttered, and you could say I was put in the back of the class every room I went to. I was watching some kids in the classroom reading, and I thought, I want to do that too. So I've asked this particular teacher, "Could you teach me to read?" He said, "It's too late, Michael. You're too old." So from that moment on, I go for my rest of my life out reading and writing until I found my person who helped me to read.
And her name is Linda Davis. Tell us about her.
Wow. what can I not say about her? The patience of a teacher I never met before my whole life. I wanted somebody who treated me like an adult, not a child. I don't want to start on baby books. And she was that person I wanted to learn by. And was she like? Box of roses. And she's got patience. So much patience with me, it's not funny.
How did you get by all of those decades when you hadn't yet acquired this skill?
The little white lies. I've left my glasses behind. Can I take that home and I'll read it later? And it worked for a long, long time. The biggest thing I wanted to do was display to my grandchildren that their grandfather, or they call me Pop Pop, that my life wasn't easy. I've coped, and give them hope that you can do anything you want to by trying a wee bit harder. My granddaughter, she's 12 years old, she read my book for the first time last night. And she said to my wife, I love Pop Pop's book. Now I understand. It takes in the family story where I grew up like. Part of when we were kids, we had a penguin. My father found it. He was a fisherman, and he found it floating in the middle of the ocean. And his name was Percy the penguin. So we used to go swimming in the sea with him. And we had a lot of joyful times with that penguin.
So Percy the penguin is the beginning of a whole series of children's books, I would think. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, probably later on in my life I might do that.
But writing a book, the process, it wasn't easy, was it?
It took a long time to get page 1 away and page 2. And now the book's finished. I'm proud of seeing the words I've written down come to life. And if it could help somebody out there who can't read and write, at my age, if I can do it, they can do it. And before you start that journey, you've got to look at yourself, because your pride takes over your first step. Once you get over that, tell somebody, I need help. You're on your way.
Michael Kingi-Potiki, the author.
An Australian surfer has broken the world record for the biggest wave ever paddled into by a woman. It happened when Laura Enever was surfing in Hawaii in January, but it's taken 10 months for her record to be verified. This report is by Wendy Urquhart.
Then everybody be surfing like California.
Laura wasn't even thinking about busting a world record when she went to Hawaii, but when she heard about a once-in-a-decade giant swell on Oahu's North Shore, she grabbed her board and headed for the beach. She could have waited for the second wave, which was even bigger than the one that was thundering towards her, but in the end she was glad she made the right choice.
When I took off, I looked down the face and was like, holy cow, this is the biggest wave you've ever been on, and just make it to the bottom, like do not fall here at the top. And so I made it to the bottom, and then just got to let go and enjoy that ride. And then the wave just like took me out of the bottom. The adrenaline and the feeling of just like riding that wave was just amazing.
But the best was yet to come.
I got, the biggest wave of my life. It was so cool, but I just didn't think anyone shot it. It wasn't until like a few days later, I got an Instagram message and a photographer sent through the photo and was like, I think this could be a world record.
For months, a team of scientists and engineers pored over photos and video of the wave that Laura caught, measuring every centimetre to determine the exact size of it. And now they've finally announced that the 31-year-old did catch what's known as a blue wall wave, measuring a staggering 13.3 metres. There's no doubt that Laura is a fearless surfer, but she says showing her parents what she'd done was a little daunting.
When I showed my family, I'd already told them about the wave, but then when I showed them, they were kind of like half mad and half proud. They were like, oh my goodness, you didn't tell us it was that big. Like, what the hell?
Wendy Urquhart.
In gene-edited chickens, which they're confident of doing in 3 years' time.
Palab Ghosh. Now to a tale of adventure, exploring, misfortune, endurance
and recovery. This is the story of 24-year-old Australian extreme rower Tom Robinson, who was attempting to break a world record and become the youngest person to row across the Pacific Ocean. A huge wave capsized the vessel on the final leg. Nuala McGovern picks up the story just as help arrives, a bit after daybreak the next morning. What went through his mind during the 14 hours that he was left clinging naked to his handmade rowing boat?
It's a long time. A lot of things went through my mind. I think first it was just the initial shock of, oh my God, this worst nightmare situation that you think about on and off for the whole journey has actually happened. And then you climb on top of the boat and everything seems really, really awful. You're wondering if you're going to survive. And then you start to have a glimmer of hope. You just got to hold on to it and you can't let the negative thoughts come in. And so I was setting myself goals for every few hours, what was going to happen next. And then I told myself that by the time the sun came up, hopefully I would see a ship, and I did. So it was this huge sense of relief that help had arrived.
And that was the cruise ship?
That was the cruise ship, yes. I was in the nude during all this because I often row without clothes.
Why?
And to stop chafe. The less clothing you've got on, the better. So when you're rowing with clothes on and there's a bit of a sea going, then you're constantly getting splashed with water and waves, and that leaves salt all over your skin. And then when you've got clothes on, that really traps the salt onto your skin, and the skin starts to rub, and then it gets raw, and it really is very painful. So when I saw the ship, I assumed it was a container vessel, which I thought, well, that's good. There'll only be 15 or 20 crew on board. And then as the ship got closer, I realised it was a cruise ship. And so there were literally hundreds or thousands of people lining the decks with cameras and binoculars.
Oh, it's kind of modesty go out the window, obviously, at that case, because it's a life or death situation. But did it give you any pause that the fact you weren't wearing any clothes in front of thousands of people?
It did more than it should have. And the unfortunate thing was that it was a very cold night. It was very uncomfortable for me. You can see in the footage of me being rescued, I'm trying to cover up as best I can. They threw down a rope ladder and I scrambled up the rope ladder.
And there was people watching this whole rescue effort, really.
Hundreds of people lining the decks with their cameras.
How do you feel when you think about that moment?
It's all still very new and strange, but that sort of image in my mind of the boat being turned upside down so violently and so quickly, that's a reoccurring image in my mind, and it is still quite frightening, and it's all very strange and quite scary. I've been back home in Brisbane for almost 24 hours now.
What are you doing?
I just had dinner with the family. So nice to just be with the family.
It's quite a lot to process, huh?
A hell of a lot to process.
I think this might be too early to ask you, Tom, but do you think you'd try it again?
I want to say no, but perhaps I will. I'm really not sure yet. There's a small chance that my vessel may wash up on a beach in Australia in a few months' time. And so if that did happen and it was still in one piece, which I think it should be, then it would be tempting to try again, definitely.
I had a dream like that once. 24-year-old Australian rower Tom Robinson speaking to Nuala McGovern. Hear from 54-year-old Geraldine McFall, who walked 3,200 kilometres from her home in Glasgow to Rome. She spent 6 months trekking through the UK, then through France, Switzerland, over the Alps, into Italy, and finally to Rome and to the Vatican, where she was honoured with a surprise audience with the Pope.
I made the route up as I was going along. I did roughly plan out the route from Glasgow to the Scottish borders over at Hawick, just so that I knew for the first week or two I had a bit of a plan. And then after that, each day, Google Maps was out, working out roughly how far I could go, where there were fewer hills, and where I could stop and camp. I had a trailer which is actually buggy for running parents. So I had this buggy strapped round my waist and pulling it from behind. I packed too much when I left Glasgow, but in essence, I packed what I would normally have in a rucksack.
What were the best moments along the way? I imagine going through France, going through Switzerland, you must have seen some extraordinary views.
Oh, the views and the scenery and the countrysides all the way through the journey were incredible. And yes, particularly Switzerland. But My big highlights really throughout the journey were the people that I met. Even just a hello, what are you doing? Or a chat in a cafe, or staying with people. I had kidnappers, as I call it, kidnapped with kindness. And people were literally taking me in, whether it would be allowing me to camp in their garden or even more, taking me in for the night and letting me have the spare room. The scenery was beautiful, but the people were even better.
When you reached the south of France and Switzerland, of course, and Italy, you hit the Alps. What was that like?
That was a worry. I had no idea how I was going to get around the Alps, but I definitely wasn't going over them. And it wasn't until I had started the journey and people were saying, you do realise there's no option but to go over the Alps. And the Alps were beautiful, but I did have 3 days with no trailer to get myself over the Alps.
Tell me about meeting the Pope and how that came about.
Meeting the Pope was such an incredible, surreal situation. It came about, unbeknown to me, the Archbishop of Glasgow, William Nolan, had contacted the Vatican household and asked if I could be presented to Pope Francis. I didn't know about any of this. I knew that I had a ticket to the general audience, so I knew that I would be in the crowd. But it was only when I collected the ticket on the Tuesday afternoon that I was told I would be presented to Pope Francis. Even better than that, my 94-year-old godfather and his daughter, they were permitted to come up with me, so they got to meet the Pope as well. And of course, the tears were just flowing from the pair of us. But Pope Francis, he was wheeled round on his wheelchair, and he had a beaming big smile when I met him and shook his hand. It was just an incredible experience.
Geraldine McFall and her long walk that raised more than $13,000 for 2 charities supporting people.
Geoffrey Holt was an unassuming man. He enjoyed a simple life, doing odd jobs here and there. His death at the age of 82 earlier this year was mourned quietly by some of the 4,000 residents of a small US town where he lived. So the people of Hinsdale in New Hampshire were shocked to learn that he'd left a considerable sum to the neighbourhood, nearly $4 million. My colleague James Reynolds spoke to Geoffrey's friend Edwin Smith.
He was a rather shy gentleman. He was quite knowledgeable about international things and national things, but he didn't really participate in anything local as far as social organizations or participating in government, except for making sure that he voted. And he did that without question.
We're told he lived frugally. Did you see that?
Absolutely, he lived frugally. He wouldn't buy anything for himself unless he absolutely had to. The one exception to that, he did like his beer. He didn't drink to excess. I never saw him when he was inebriated, but he did enjoy a beer or two. But he always bought the least expensive beer he could.
How surprised were you?
I was surprised several years before because he had told me that his investments had done very, very well. His investment account had over 7 digits in it, 7 figures. So that was probably 15 years ago. I hadn't kept up with it since then. He told me that the investments are doing well, but we never talked specifics. So I really wasn't too surprised. I didn't share that information with many people because I didn't want him to be bothered by somebody knowing anything.
Edwin, it's not just that he lived frugally. It's not just that he had a fortune of almost $4 million. It's that in his will, he left that to the town. How is the town going to spend that money?
That money is going to be sent to the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, and they have several funds, many funds that are like this, and they take the income or from the trust that they hold, and they will dispense that to the various entities in Hinsdale that will benefit from it.
That was Edwin Smith speaking to James Reynolds.
Now, below the waves around the Florida Keys, a former Navy commander turned biomedical engineer, Joseph Totori, has achieved his goal of living for 100 days underwater. His home was a tiny 9-metre subaquatic compound. The world record for living in such conditions fell to him weeks ago, but that's not why he did it. Madeline Drury's been finding out more.
It's Dr. Deep Sea, aka Dr. Joe D. Torrey, living in my undersea habitat for the next 100 days. And guess what,
A team
guys?
of specialists on the surface, or
So I call it upstairs.
as Joe DeTuri sees it, are helping him monitor his health through ear sampling, where he takes swabs to find out how the ear functions at greater pressure underwater. Plus, they're taking blood tests and recording heart and brain activity. Now speaking to me at
50 days and probably like 4 hours.
he spotted some interesting impacts of living nearly 7 meters down.
My voice sounds very high and nasally. I'm usually manly. I have a manly voice. My vocal cords are compressed at the compressed pressure. I'm at about 1.7 times the pressure you're at upstairs. The other thing that we find is that there is an increased need, frequency, and urgency to urinate.
Joe hopes his 100 days as a lab rat will allow him to help people with traumatic brain injuries, also known as TBI. His hypothesis: if greater pressure can be used to increase blood flow to the brain, then it can be used to treat TBI and perhaps other diseases.
So right now, I am at the exact pressure at which we treat traumatic brain injury in my clinic. Now, what we've seen anecdotally is that PTSD symptoms are ameliorated with just pressure alone. Holy mackerel.
Joe says he's observed stem cell circulation double at this pressure. Stem cells act as the body's repair system. One of those who could benefit from Joe's research is Ethan Nagel, a former US Marine scout sniper.
When I was wounded, I took shrapnel to the face in the initial ambush, and then later on I was shot, took multiple grazes, punctures to my neck and my leg, and I thought I was dead at one point. That's going to catch up to you.
Ethan has been able to reach pressures that, as Joe has found, relieve his symptoms thanks to Warfighter Scuba, a charity who says they have seen countless veteran symptoms of brain injury improve at depth. The head of which, Nick Powers, is also a former combat Marine living with PTSD and TBI.
It got really bad, pretty much thoughts of suicide every day. Scuba basically saved me. That first breath you take underwater erases everything.
Nick and Ethan dive to meet with Joe and are now working together on treatments at Joe's clinic.
We did a thing. We did a thing. We did part of a thing. Yeah. We're almost there. Yeah.
It's day 73, and Joe is sat with mission director Thane Malone. They've just broken a world record.
But we're not done. Not by a long shot. 27 more days.
Many tests and a dodged ear infection later, and Joe emerges from the water.
Personally, I was reminded of the fact that as humans, we need to shake hands, high five, hug. And that was something that was absolutely not as good as it could be during the entire mission.
What did you learn then about the impacts of pressure on the body?
We solidified and hopefully solidified for the world the mechanism of action for hyperbaric medicine, like reducing inflammation, reducing stress, like oxidative stress. It basically means I'm in better health right now than I was when I went in there.
Madeline Drury talking to Dr. Joseph.
5 years ago, the world was captivated by the rescue of a young football team stuck in a Thai cave system for 18 days. Now, 150 rescuers from around the world have converged on one of Turkey's deepest caves to try to bring out an American scientist trapped a kilometre underground. Mark Dickey was part of an international team exploring the Morka Cave in the Taurus Mountains when he fell ill with gastrointestinal bleeding. He recorded this message.
Mark Dickey from nearly 1,000 meters. I want to thank everyone that's down here and thank the response of the caving community. The caving world is a really tight-knit group, and it is amazing to see how many people have responded on the surface. We're still waiting for communications to actually reach down here, so right now it's a day to 2 days worth of travel for information to get back and forth. As you can see, I'm up, I'm alert, I'm talking, but I'm not healed on the inside yet, so I'm going to need a lot of help to get out of here.
Well, Berza Şimşek of the BBC Turkish services following the rescue operation, she told us the latest on Mark Dickey's state of health.
Doctors are currently trying to improve his condition so that the rescue operation can start. He's stuck down below in 1,040 meters. As far as we understand, he also said in his video message that he can talk, he's alert, but obviously his condition needs to improve before the rescue operation can start.
He is a kilometre beneath the surface, but presumably that's not just straight down.
I mean, I used to do caving at university as amateur nature, so I'm a bit familiar with the caves. And caves are divided into two. You have vertical caves and you have horizontal caves. This is a vertical cave. This is the third deepest cave in Turkey, and he is stuck down below 1,040 meters. And most of the cave is, you can imagine as if like climbing to a mountain, but you are doing it underground. You are climbing up and down with a rope. You need to go through twists and turns in narrow spaces. So basically that's the situation he's in right now.
So how will they be able to get him out, and how long could it take?
That's what they're trying to figure out. So as far as I understand, the European Cave Rescue Association has made out a plan. They have divided the cave into 7 sections, and there are different teams from European countries, and each country will be taking care of one section. For example, the Bulgarian team will take him from 1,040 meters to 900 meters, and then they will hand over to another team. That's their plan. But the discussion is whether they can now use a stretcher or not. Because it's a vertical cave, it might be difficult to rescue him with a stretcher, which means that he needs to be quite strong before the rescue operation can start. It's a very important story in Turkish press as well, but we will see what's going to happen.
Shimshek.
Manicures and nail art are very big business. The industry's worth more than $20 billion globally. Nowadays, it's fuelled by social media, where people share their designs. Over the past 2 days, hundreds of technicians from more than 30 countries have been taking this to the next level, attending the world's biggest nail art competition, known as Nailympia, here in London. Our reporter, Nikki Cardwell, went along.
I'm looking at one of the finished entries for this year's Nailympia. Each individual nail is beautifully painted and detailed, but when the model's fingers are held together, they make up an amazingly complex design. All the entries have to be properly applied to the model's hand and be structurally sound as well as beautiful. Anneke van der Sar from the Netherlands is the competition's chief judge. She thinks the appeal is that these spectacular designs can be worn by anyone.
It's an art form, but it's also becoming like an accessory for the end user, because she wants to have her nails painted or colored, or she's going to a special party. So it has all to do with art, but also being in fashion. I think there is not one woman who doesn't wear any color on her nails.
Mexico's Ismael Camero won the fantasy category with a huge 3D Day of the Dead design.
Porque las uñas llegaron a mi vida y es lo que me gustó.
Nails just came to my life, and that's what I enjoy.
And would you like to see some of your work in a big museum somewhere?
No lo he pensado, pero las posibilidades son infinitas.
We haven't think about it, but it's endless possibilities.
With the Chinese nail market worth nearly £2 billion a year alone, next year Nailympia will be going to China for the first time. The organisers are anticipating that it will be their biggest event yet, with the promise of 500 local competitors on top of those from the rest of the world.
Ago as the 14th century, people in northern France were amusing themselves by using mallets to knock balls through hoops made of willow branches. Although it was in Ireland where croquet became really popular. It's usually played on grass rather than at the top of a mountain. But my next guest had other ideas. Andy and his friends were on a week-long hike through California's beautiful Sequoia National Park, finishing at the summit of Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the United States outside Alaska. And once they got to 14,500 feet, they played croquet. But have they set a new world record?
So when we're backpacking, everybody carries their own mallet, they carry their own ball. And we backpacked this trip for 7 days. So everyone that saw us on the hike was definitely intrigued why we had giant mallets sticking out of our packs. But the hike was quite lovely. We started on the west side in Sequoia National Park, and then we headed east across the Sierra Mountain Range. And the last day we ended on Mount Whitney. The night before we slept at 13,500 feet so that we could summit during the sunrise, which was beautiful, but it was probably 20 degrees when we got to the top, and we really wanted to play croquet up there, which was a challenge, to say the least.
So at what point in the expedition did someone say, why don't we play croquet at the top of the mountain?
I think my friend Ryan had it in his mind the entire time that we had to, because we were bringing the croquet with us. And why not play at the highest elevation we've all ever been to? So we figured we'd at least attempt it.
Is there a flat enough surface? I suppose there must be.
As you can imagine, there isn't a good croquet surface up there. The top is somewhat flat and undulating, but it's all rock. There's no soft ground or anything. So we were just wedging wickets between rocks and just trying to make a course work. But I'd prefer to play with softer ground for sure.
But perfect for Instagram, YouTube, and as it turns out, a world record.
Yes, hopefully. We still need to submit with the Guinness book, but I believe that it is a record. I haven't been able to find anything in regard to the highest elevation croquet match previous to this. So there's a chance that someone out in the Himalayas or something has outperformed us, but to my knowledge, that has not occurred. And the concern is that we won't meet the criteria because we didn't film the whole event. We only filmed part of the event. So I'm not sure how strict they actually are.
Oh, I think in my experience, and we've talked a lot about world records on the Happy Pod, they are quite strict. I'm getting worried now that maybe it'll be a sort of unofficial achievement, but not one that they recognise. I hope not.
Well, that's okay. It was an achievement for us, regardless of whether or not it's in the record book officially.
You can always go again.
We could. I would love to do that hike again, but man, it would be a challenge.
Zandile Nulavu grew up in the South African township of Soweto, nowhere near the ocean. But at 35, Zandile is now South Africa's first black female dive instructor and founder of the Black Mermaid Foundation, an organisation seeking to get children from vulnerable communities to befriend the ocean and take care of its habitat. She's been named as one of the BBC's 100 Women of 2023. But Zandile's connection to the water hasn't always been positive, so let's hear more from her.
When I was growing up, every single time there was a drowning, whether by a river close to my grandmother's or later on out at sea, it would be said that a snake took the child. And so you grow up with this stay away from all big bodies of water, and it causes a fear inside your body. And then externally, as you grow up, there's this narrative of how, oh, but black people don't swim. This narrative lives around us, but very quickly it becomes internalized. And that just builds on the fear. The first time I saw the ocean, I was about 12 years old. And then in 2016, I go on the snorkel trip. As we went on to jump into the water, I started freaking out. I'm drowning, it was messy. In the moments that follow is a self-to-self, calm down. And as I looked beneath the surface of the water, there was this light beneath it. And those were the sun rays on the coral reef. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. Fell in love. When I started diving, I was always the only black person on the boat as a guest. Whether it's your wetsuit not fitting, whether it's someone asking, are you going to dive with all of that hair? And you're just like, what does it mean to remind me that I'm the outsider? My friends would also say, why do you do white people things? The ocean for me is such a hard place because it holds so much history around black bodies. There were all of these racial tensions because in South Africa, people were jailed for being at the wrong beaches, never mind being dispossessed of their ocean-facing homes. There's the physical history that creates a disassociation as to who belongs in the water.
Wait, are we there yet?
When I qualified as a freediving instructor in 2020, I knew one thing. I did not want to work in a dive shop continuing the norm. I wanted to use this certificate to be able to bring change in my community. So the Ocean Hub is a dream that I had sometime last year.
There it is! Oh, it's so good to see it!
What would happen if we had this hub where the kids could come to, where we read together, we learn together, but also maybe expand into drama because kids don't often speak about what they're going through. The Ocean Hub for me is a place that is a safe space for the kids to dream. That's an important way to expand worlds that can feel very tiny and very suffocating. The idea that we need to protect and save our oceans cannot be done by a minimal part of the population. That's been a very difficult world in trying to communicate climate change problems, rising ocean levels. It's hard to have that discussion when it feels like this white ocean has always been advocated by white people. So for me, it says we need all hands on deck to ensure that these little ones that are growing up become ocean guardians in their own right. They are able to advocate for the protection of our ocean.
Zandile Lavu, South Africa's first black female dive instructor and one of the BBC's 100 women.
The 53-kilometre swim from Northern Ireland to Scotland is considered one of the toughest in the world. Jonty Warnken is the first solo amputee to battle the strong currents and the jellyfish to do it.
I love open water swimming for a number of reasons. One, I love swimming. Two, I love getting out in nature. Three, due to my sort of disabilities, it's one of the only times I'm pretty much pain-free is when I'm doing normal swims out in the water. And four, you find, once you do it, you find a community of people that's really quite accepting of anybody. It really doesn't matter what, colour, creed, faith, body shape. Everyone's just so welcoming and just wants you to do the swim that makes you happy. It doesn't really matter if you swim 5 metres or 500 or 5 miles. No one cares.
You lost a leg in a car crash. So just describe how you swim differently than other people might.
The bits of me that are missing or that are a bit broken that matter when swimming is my left leg is missing below the knee. My right ankle is pinned. I nearly lost my right leg as well. So my right ankle is pinned and severely arthritic. So I don't get a huge amount of movement in the ankle. So they don't get much of a kick to help with buoyancy and propulsion. And then the big issue for open water swimming and certainly sea swimming is that when I get tipped over onto my left, I don't have the mechanics or enough of the mechanics to push down my left leg to push me back to right me. So I'm unbalanced in the water.
I think I've got a bit of insight into this because one of my very close friends is quadriplegic and smashed a few world records sailing. And she used to hate it when people said to her, well, isn't life hard enough? Haven't you got enough to deal with without taking on these physical challenges? Give me your take on why that's the right thing for you to do.
Because why should able-bodied people have all the fun? These things are tough swims. The North Channel is known as the toughest of the 7 classic channel swims. So whether you've got legs missing or not is a really tough gig. The fact that I live with pain on a daily basis, well, so be it. That's just my life. I would be living that if I wasn't swimming. I like being outdoors. I love swimming. I love a challenge. And I think I can do it.
As you were doing the swim, I'm guessing you always thought, I'm going to do this, I'm going to conquer this. If you didn't have that kind of mindset, the whole thing might be hard to take on.
No, you'll be surprised, actually. Hours 2 to 4, I was questioning my sanity because, I'm not really into the rhythm of the swim, not only the rhythm of my stroke, but the timetable of the day. So there's a routine to it all, and then there's just the melodic movement of your arms. Half the swim you don't remember, or I certainly don't. I go into a place where I think about literally nothing. So really all you're focusing on is swimming. And, I love that. And I love being, and I talk to the jellyfish as well sometimes. I can see going under me. That's quite good fun. And I love looking at the nature. It's lovely.
What do you say to the jellyfish when you're talking to them?
Oh, I can't say necessarily on this, but you just say hello. You go your way and I won't disturb you, and just don't disturb me.
Jonty swam the North Channel in 15 hours, 24 minutes. He's now preparing to compete in the Ice Swimming Championships in Romania.
Yeah. 6 years ago, former paratrooper Christian Lewis set out for a long walk. He had £10 in his pocket, a dilapidated tent, and a plan to walk the coastline of the UK. Now that 14,000-kilometre journey is done, and along the way, Chris found some company. His fiancée, Kate, their baby son, Magnus, and I know you'll want this detail, a dog called Jet. And he says the journey restored his faith in humanity.
After leaving the forces, I'd become a single parent, and somewhere along the line, after 10 years, I'd lost my way a bit. And no matter what I did, nothing seemed to change. I've always described it as being inside a box that you just can't seem to fight your way out of. And I knew that I needed to do something drastic, and I knew that this was my chance to change some things. So I just had this epiphany one day. A voice in my head just said, just go and walk the UK coastline. And literally a few days later, I was gone, and it was, a life-changing decision, I must say. I made a promise to myself the first day that I started this walk that I just wanted to return back to Swansea, a happy man. And I think the great thing about adventure and, something so unplanned as well is you just don't know what's around the next corner. And I returned to Swansea more than a happy man.
And how did you pick up a partner along the way?
Listen, I ask myself that question every single day. I think if you're doing something that you love doing and you're doing a lot of it, then I think it's only natural that you're going to meet somebody who loves doing the same thing. And Kate and I, when we very first met, we just really hit it off. We both talked about things we wanted to do in the future, and I couldn't believe I was listening to somebody say stuff that was so similar to what I wanted to do. So I think it was inevitable that Kate and I were going to get together.
What do you do now, though? So you've walked around the UK coastline for 6 years. You've done this, raised a phenomenal amount for charity. Like now, what do you do on a Sunday? I can't imagine you're the kind of guy who just sits down and watches the telly.
So Kate and I have decided that we're going to head back up north, I think, somewhere in Scotland, where we can just have a bit of time to ourselves and just plan our next adventure. I know for a fact that Kate and I are the sort of people that just love to be on the move all the time, seeing different places, seeing different cultures. So we're just going to go straight on to another adventure. We don't know exactly what it is, but I'm pretty sure it'll be something ridiculous, and it'll take some time. Our little boy, Magnus, he is just thriving in the outside life, and we're just confident that I think anything that we think of, we're just going to go out there and smash it.
Christian Lewis was
Arabic. Windsurfing is a high-intensity water sport. You need to have very strong arms and a very strong core to take part. However, it's not just for the young. A Polish pensioner is hoping to officially become the world's oldest windsurfer at the age of 88. Stephanie Prentice reports.
That's the sound of Piotr Dudek heading out from a harbour in Poland, using his body to control a large sail being whipped around by the wind. This is one of the 2 weekly trips the retired grandfather needs for him to go for the Guinness World Record for windsurfing, something he says he's determined to get this spring. But it won't be easy.
The biggest challenge is to learn how to control the element, nature, because it's about embracing the wind, the water, the wobbly board. And when you put it all together, you have a lot of fun.
Though ageing may make windsurfing harder, Piotr says the sport has become easier.
The first gear was very primitive, very heavy boards. 2 people needed to carry it onto water, and the boom was attached to the mast with a string. There were no patents, like nowadays, for example, or latches.
Despite the gear improving, Piotr now only goes out at a level 3 Beaufort or wind scale instead of the 5 he was used to when he first started out. On top of that, he's passing his skills on to a new generation, teaching a large group of Polish students how to master the sport and maybe one day get the world record after him.
Stephanie Prentice.
Breckners in Berlin. Now, we do love a world record in the Happy News team, and 27-year-old martial artist Naveen Kumar has just reclaimed one for cracking the most walnuts in 1 minute with his head. His total, 273. That's over 4.5 nuts per second. By doing so, he broke the previous record of 254, taking the title from serial record breaker Mohammed Rashid. Lipika Pelham takes up the story.
Indians have a deep enthusiasm for record setting, which in recent years has developed into something of an obsession. Hence the long-standing rivalry between Naveen Kumar and Mohammed Rashid. Mohammed first broke the record in 2014 with a total of 150 walnuts cracked before shattering his own record again in 2016 with 181. A year later, in order to determine who was truly the world's best nutcracker, Naveen, who was 22 at the time, and Mohammed, who was 36, were brought together, head-to-head, so to speak, on the set of the Italian TV programme La Notte dei Record, the Night of Records. Both contestants broke the standing record, with Mohammed emerging victorious, cracking 254 walnuts compared to Naveen's 239. Now, 5 years later, Naveen's revenge has made headlines in Indian newspapers, prompting commentary such as "Naveen has put blood, sweat and tears into reasserting himself as the world's foremost walnut cracker." Guinness World Records shared a video of the feat on Twitter, showing Naveen smashing walnuts on a table one by one with his forehead. Each had to crack into at least 2 halves, and he got only 1 attempt per nut. The video was posted only a few days ago and has already been viewed nearly 100,000 times with hundreds more likes and retweets. The comments included lines like, "Show me his forehead." There was one which probably best summed it all up: "This is nuts."
That was Lipika Pelham. Please don't try that at home.